Hey everybody, Daniel here. I'm super excited to share these new changes with you. We've been working on this for months now, and finally have something that's we can actually let you start using. It's not quite finished yet. I wouldn't say that, but definitely something you can start using and giving us feedback on. Let's head to the Make Entries page. And then when you get here, we're going to allow you to select, if you want to just use the original Make Entries page that you've always been using and are familiar with, you can definitely do that still. But this is the new page that we have been working on. Right off the bat, let me just say that we do consider this still to be in beta. The base functionality of this page and what it's supposed to do works, so it's not going to screw anything up, but you might run into some usability issues. For example, we just haven't spent a lot of time on making this mobile friendly yet. It's on our to-do list, but we wanted to get this in front of you first. So so we know that's an issue. And the toggle hints button, I just haven't wired that up to anything. So things like that, if you find things, please, just click this button here and report a bug directly to me, and then I'll start a collection and make sure all those things that you find are taken care of. I've done quite a bit of testing, but if you run into anything that just weird things that might happen, let me know. Happy to take a look. Let me get these out of the way for now. So let's dive into this page by starting at the bottom, and then we'll work to the top. So this at the bottom of the page is what we're calling the quick entry dialog. This is for those times where you just need to make a single quick entry. For example, you would just click here and select the category that you want to make the entry for. Everything that is on the old Make Entries page is in this list, but it's just a flat list that you would select from just for those one-off times where you need to make an entry. So for example, I needed to make a beer fermented entry, and then I could just fill out the rest of this little form, just like normal. So I would pick a batch. Either I can select the ones that are saved already, or a new batch 2. Hit enter. That'll save the batch there, and then select a target date, and then just like normal, any comments. And when you're done, click save, and there you go. You made a quick entry. We'll be starting to deploy this on other pages as well. So for example, I've heard a lot of feedback. People want to make an entry right from the dashboard, or people want to make an entry, right from the entry log or the batch history page. So this will start showing up slowly on other pages, but here's your first taste of what we have as far as making a quick entry on this page now. So that's what that is. Now let's get into the exciting stuff, the stuff that I think is really going to save a lot of time. So what we've done is created this idea of a process. And a process is, for us, just a collection of entries that you have made and saved as a process. So I think that the easiest way to explain this would be to just, start showing you by, actually making one with you here. So when you click on that green icon, you'll be able to select all of the different entries, or any of the different entries that are available in TTB Tamer. So for example, here under beer production, we have beer fermented and liquids added in cellar. If you star an entry, this is how you make the entry a favorite. So obviously you're making beer all the time. So if you star this, it will show up at the very top of all your lists in your quick entries. I also have losses here starred. Let me show you that real quick. So under losses, you can see I've made that a favorite. So in the quick entries, now that it's a favorite, it'll always pop to the very top, so you're not looking, through 100, literally over 100 available entries that we have. It'll just pop to the top. You'll be able to select that real quick. If you want to get a high-level overview of everything we got going on here, you can close all of these groups. So you can see we have beer production, we have materials used, racking and bottling, losses, other things that most people never use. Here's the beer removals and sales. I'm going to work on getting this closer to the top of the list so you don't have to scroll down to find it. But here's all of your sales and removals. Other ways we can find what we're looking for is if we just, start typing. So for example, if we look for sales, we'll be able to filter real quick, and all of these entries have something to do with the word sales in them. Or if we look for loss, you can see here losses is filtered to the top. So if you're looking for something specific, feel free to type in here to see if you can find it quicker. It's a little easier than just scrolling through everything to find it. The other thing I guess I didn't mention with favorites is once you make a bunch of favorites, let's just select a few to have something to show. Once you have your favorites selected, now you can just flip the switch and you can see all your favorites. So, those entries that you're always making, you can make them a favorite and then find them real quick here in this list, as well as your quick entries. So let's dive into the processes and making a process. So for example, let me just, let's say in my brewery, I am always fermenting. So I'm going to add that to my process. I'm not going to worry too much about materials used because I personally don't care about it too much. But let's just say that I, rack it to kegs. So I want to see these 3 entries, transfer from cellar to racking, racking beer to kegs, and then returning any racking bulk beer back to the cellar. That might happen in my brewery. And then let's say I always have losses from the cellar. So I want to see that in my process. And I always have losses from racking bulk. And then let's go down to sales. And let's say that I always, have 2 options. I sell beer in kegs to my tavern. And I occasionally, sell kegs to, bars and restaurants. So I'll mark that one as well. And I think that's good for now. So those are all of the entries that I want to see in my custom process. So we'll click Save here. So here we go. We have all of our, entries in our custom process. Let's start by giving this a name. So, Dan's Brewery Custom Process. There's my name for this process. You can either choose to keep this process private to yourself, or if I want to share this with everybody else who's associated with my brewery, I can do that here. And now I can customize this even further. So beer production, I can change that to beer in fermenters. If I can spell, fermenters. And now, there's no, anybody who looks at this process, there's no confusion. This entry is for beer in fermenters. So you can, see how this can be really easy to share with other people. Or if you wanted to make this a completely different name, Dan fills this out every day. And now when I recall this process, I can go to this field and say, hey, this is what I have to fill out every day. You can see what I mean here. So let's just change this back to beer in fermenters. So for example here, racking and bottling. again, a very clinical name. Let's just say all of my entries that are associated with beer that goes into kegs are here. So I can change this grouping. So now that everybody sees this, they can very easily see that, okay, that's what these entries are about. Another way you can customize this process is, say, for example, you want to change this and move it to a different group. You can select that here and move this up, or move it back down, or, move this one up and move this one down. So you can rearrange these entries anywhere on the page. You can change the categories that you see, give a special name to your process, and choose whether or not to share this with everybody in your brewery or keep it private to yourself. So now that we've done all of our customizations, let's save it. And now let's go into what we call use mode. So I should back up. When you first start making a process, you'll be put in this edit mode. When you actually want to use it, just click over, and now you're in use mode. So you can see, all of our entries that are related to beer and fermenters are here, and we can, just like the quick entries, fill out an amount, a unit, a batch, a target date, and a comment, and beer that goes into kegs. All of our entries that are related to that are right here. Losses and removals and sales. Pretty self-explanatory. And what you see here is that now we're actually allowing you to change batches between different entries. So like on the other page, the original page, you would have to change your batch every time you wanted to, reuse that window for a different batch. Now we're allowing you to, hey, so this is, batch number 2 on this one. I want to do batch number 1 on this one. And we're also allowing you to select different dates for every entry that you want to make. So for example, let's just go through this and say, on October 1st, I brewed this beer called New Batch 2. This is a comment. And then let's just say, we brewed it on the 1st. And then on the 11th, I moved it to my bright tank to start carbonating. So that's also 20 barrels. New Batch 2. And again, if you want to make another comment, you can do that here. And then, so let's say we also racked 2 kegs today. So it's been in there for a little under a week and ready to be racked to kegs. And that's going to happen today. And then we're not going to have anything racked back to the cellar or transferred back to the cellar, but we will have some losses. So let's say 2 barrels, New Batch 2, target date today. All right, so those are all the entries that I want to make. So as you can see, I have different dates selected for each entry, and you can also, select individual batches for different entries on the same page. So when I'm done here, save it, and we show you a receipt. So now you can double check everything that you've actually done. We made 4 entries. All the 4 entries are showing up here. The amount, the target date, and the batch number. So you can double check real quick on any paper logs you might have or a spreadsheet that you're keeping track with, and make sure everything that you intended to make an entry for has actually been done. And what's really cool about this is when you're done, and say 3-4 days later when you come back to this page, you can just search for this process that's been saved and recall it. So you don't have to recreate a process every time. You create it once, save it, and then anybody who comes back to this page, if you shared it with your brewery, will be able to see, just right up here, all of your different processes. So yeah, super time savings here. You can make, one process for, brew day, and then have, beer fermented, liquids added in cellar, and all your materials used. You can make another process called, making kegs, and then have all the entries, related to making kegs saved into one process. You can even, if you have different people doing different things, you can make one process called, Dan's entries, and then everything I'm responsible for will show up in that process, and then everything that obviously you don't want them to see or you don't want to confuse anybody, you don't have to include that. I've already gone through here and made a few examples. So for example, this process will show you every question available to you, just like the make entries page that we've been using for 4 years now. This has all of the entries that you could ever possibly think of on this page. Typical brew pub, a brew pub that doesn't rack the kegs or bottle. They just sell everything and move everything from the cellar. So I took out all of the kegging and bottling entries that you never need to see, and you are only going to have losses from the cellar because you're not kegging and bottling, for example. Let's see here. What else can I show you real quick? Let me just pull this back up real quick and make sure I have everything explained. So if you see a red exclamation point here, that means that you're forgetting something that's required. So for example, I fermented beer, 20 barrels. I picked the batch, but I haven't chosen a target date yet. So once I choose a target date, we'll get the green check mark that'll show me that yes, I can save this. If it's red exclamation point, it's just not going to save when you click the save button. Other things, you can recall this process like I did, and then you can switch it back into edit mode just by clicking that button. And now you can start customizing again, saying, hey, actually I really want this, moved up into this other category. I can save it, and then I saved it back, and now we can use it again. Another thing here is if you move into edit mode, you can add more entries. Say you forgot one. There you go. And I'll kick you back to this page and say, I do want to see liquids in cellar. Save it. There you go. Another thing here that you'll be able to do is say, for example, I make a new process and I want to see beer produced, multiple times. And I can do that with any of these. Any of these that make sense to you, feel free to do it. I can save that. And now you can see I have a process and I have, 5 different beers. So maybe, for example, you sit down at the end of the week instead of doing this daily, that I recommend doing it daily, but instead maybe you do it at the end of the week and you always have 5 beers that you've brewed throughout the week. Now you can make 5 different beer fermented entries for each for a different batch, and I can and different dates, different amounts obviously, and then save it when you're done just by one click. Instead of, the old page where you'd have to, okay, so I saved this batch, and, refresh the page, change the date, change the batch number, save a new batch. Okay, I saved that. Now I got to change the dates, change the batch number, save it again. It gets very repetitive, easy to make, mistakes or miss things. Now you do it once on one page. You can save multiple things on different dates and different batches. And there you go. I saved 3 different batches, 3 different dates, 3 different amounts, all on one save click, and then I can easily check this receipt that I get against any paper logs or spreadsheets that you're using to make sure nothing's been missed. All right, so yeah, that's the general gist. Sorry, I said this was going to be short. Now it's 22 minutes. Please take a look, use it. Let me know in email, report bugs. Yeah, so thanks. Let me know what you think, and I hope this is useful.